Hi, Fems. I am Violette Ayala. I am the founder of FemCity, and you're joining me today for a really special series for me. I was supposed to do a topic today about how to get organized in life to kick off the month of June, but I woke up this morning. Well, I went to bed last night with a really big heaviness on my chest, and I kind of woke up with it the same. And really, I've been wanting to see like what I can do during these times to make the world a better place. And so I reached out to this beautiful spirit next to me, this beautiful soul, Candice. She's one of our FemCity Global members, and I asked her her thoughts today. I thought, I think we should have conversations about racism and about our community and how to bring it all together. And Candice, she's just so incredibly spiritual and connected. And so I was also looking for confirmation that this is the right path. And we both discussed it today briefly. So we literally just created this. We wanted to have this conversation. Our intention, we both are on the same page. I'm getting chills, is to have a conversation that talks about racism, what's going on. And really the intention is how we have the pivoting. How do we get to a better place from where we are now? So that's the conversation we're going to have. Ask that if you are joining us, that you join with us, open spirit, open heart, non-judgmental, and from a place of healing, from a place of love. That is our intention. So if you're not there today, it's okay. Maybe in a couple of days you'll be there to join our conversation, but that's what we're going to talk about today. And again, our intention is to help our communities come together. There's so much goodness there also, that how do we get to that place? So Candice, thank you so much for your flexibility and for you just jumping in this. I really cannot tell you how grateful I am that you just were like, yeah, let's do it. So thank you. Do you want to add anything to that before we kind of dive in a little bit?
I am super honored and grateful that you asked me. And I'm grateful to be here. And I just want to say for anyone watching, there might be things that you inherently disagree with or don't like, and that's fine. So our intent is for this to be a beneficial, I don't even want to say positive because it might be challenging to hear, and that's okay. The expectation isn't that you automatically just agree or see things from our perspectives. It's just to start having the conversation so we can all get there. The goal is how can we come together, and it's not all the love and light way to do that is how we get there, So I just appreciate your time. If you're watching this, I really respect you and honor that you're here.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. All right. So this whole weekend, I'll be honest, I chickened out. I was going to go to the protest and I chickened out. I chickened out. Like, I'm just going to start. Like I told my son that I told friends, and he's like, I can't believe you admitted that, but I did. I chickened out. I am thoroughly scared of being attacked. And so I chickened out. I feel really guilty not showing up. I have had to kind of embrace my own color of skin throughout this time. I'm a light brown Cuban. And I just remember being a child and recognizing that I was not blonde and white and, blue eyes. And so this weekend for me was also a time for me to reflect about, what my part is and what I can do. I felt like I couldn't do anything. That's literally what I felt, because the one thing I was too scared to do. And I think probably there are a lot of people out there that were like, I want to do something. How do I do something? And chickening out like I chickened out. I should have gone. I regret not going. But anyway, so I wanted to just share that I also have that internal desire to have a conversation, to see like how I, as a human, can fit into this piece. And so, Candice, like, how do we even start to heal? I think that what I shared, I see a lot of my friends posting and commenting and the best that they can with what they've got. So I've seen a lot of friends post about GoFundMe pages. I've seen a lot of friends post their perspective, their stories, also their, moments of being activists in that world, in that kind of theme and topic and discussion. How do we even start to heal from this?
I think everyone's path to healing is so personal and so individual. And you didn't go to the protest over the weekend, but this morning you woke up and was like, let's talk about race, and brought it to the FEMS community, which I have to say, I'm noticing a lot of people who are leaders, like business leaders and also spiritual leaders, who are literally remaining silent or business as usual. So if a person doesn't normally post on social media, fine. But for people who post a lot, it's like they're just focused on whatever. And it's really been interesting for me because I am realizing the extent to which things really do bother me, and that, and I didn't think like things that I didn't think would affect me or bother me. It's like, no, I really care. It means a lot to see allies, people who aren't African American, just sharing their truth or sharing posts that just say links to places to donate. I think for Fems, the most important thing that you could do is just recognize that going forward, I don't feel like this is going to be one of those blow over and we all go back to how things were before. And this is really an opportunity to bring people together. And what I am witnessing, and so disclaimer, right? I do not speak for all Black people. Anti-racism work is not my genius or my forte. I'm an intuitive coach, psychic medium. I tune into energy.
Right. I didn't even introduce you.
No, it's fine. Like, let's just get to it, right? Let's not waste time. It'll come through. What my perspective has been is just the voice of marginalized people not being heard. And that's what led to protests. And then that turns into riots and everything else. And so it really isn't enough anymore if you are not a person of color. It's not enough to just be like, well, I personally like Black people, so we're all good here. And it's really interesting to me because one of the most simple things you can do in your groups or in your community spaces is just let people know. And this is, I'm talking more for business owners because FemCity is about business or leadership communities. One of the most powerful things you can do is really set the standard, set the tone for your groups and organizations. And what are the rules? It's again, in business, if we were trying to market our products, we wouldn't just say like, oh, hire me, I'm wonderful, or buy my product, it's awesome. Like we really have to break down and explain what that means. And it's the same for holding anti-racist spaces. What does that mean for your community? And you have to say those things. It can just be beneficial. So it doesn't have to be, oh, in support of protests, if you don't feel comfortable saying that, and I'll get to that in a second. But I would invite you to say something, even if it's, hey, this is a space where all people are welcome here. This is a space where this is the focus and this is the work that we do. And just something so that your community knows. And the other thing I have to say is I was inundated this weekend with so many people reaching out to me and saying, Candice, how are you? I can't imagine how you're feeling. This is from non-Black people. I can't imagine what you're going through. What's up? And like they were really sincerely checking on me. It was so much that I didn't even have the energy to respond to that. And I think sometimes as a leader in spaces, we have this expectation that if someone is encountering racism or a microaggression, and microaggressions, for those of you who don't know, there's a kind of like those subtle things that aren't overtly racist, but still make a person feel immediately like an outsider and that they aren't valued as a human being. And I have to say, as an African-American person, I've been in so many coaching classes, circles, groups, and even in the spiritual community. It's not always, I don't just say stuff when I see stuff, when I experience things, because the feeling is kind of like, well, it happens all the time, and what's the point of me speaking up? And so what I've been realizing, and in myself is, oh yeah, I am super triggered by everything that's going on, and talking with other people of color. And we have so many stories, excuse me, of things that have happened to us that, no, we haven't said anything to leadership, because why would we? Because we've been so jaded into thinking that it doesn't matter. So please understand that just because no one, if you have people of color in your circles, no one's come to you ever before and said, hey, I was really uncomfortable when this happened, it doesn't mean that it's not there. They might not have felt comfortable to approach you in that area, because typically responses to situations that we face has been, oh, you're overreacting, you're too sensitive. Or for those of you who are familiar with the 4 agreements, there is, and not just with race related, but people will weaponize the 4 agreements. So, well, if you feel uncomfortable, that's on you. I don't know why you feel that way. My intent was this. And it's not really listening to where a person is coming from. And so again, I feel like one of the first steps is just to be very clear with what is your community about with regards to how you're holding an anti-racist space. And it literally is not, if there are people that you actually on your heart that you care about, absolutely reach out to them. But there also comes a point where that can turn into emotional labor. The best way to show up for people of color in your community or friends or family members is to really be willing to look at and do the work. And that's for all of us to do, but especially if you are a white person, non-Black person, and there are so many resources where there are books, there are classes that you can actually take, and it's to dismantle the systemic and systematic racism that we don't even know that we're a part of. So as I just said, we encounter all these microaggressions all the time, and my go-to reaction is just not to roll my eyes and not say anything, except to maybe the other Black person in the room, but I have been conditioned and trained by society that my voice doesn't matter. Is that true? Doesn't have to be true, but it really takes all of us to take responsibility and accountability for our own actions and behavior. And it can be really hard for people of color to be speaking up and pointing out every little thing, because it just gets exhausting.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I love, Candice, that you gave us a couple of ways that we can just start, because I'm positive there are people that are like I said, I felt like a coward not going, because I'm super scared of like white supremacist groups. Like, I think as a child, my dad lived in Charleston, South Carolina, and hearing the stories, he's my color skin. He's got more textured hair, and just hearing the stories of like, as a Cuban boy, right? Like a Cuban boy from, had just come from Havana. So just hearing his stories, I'm like, I was so scared. And then I thought, it made me realize the highest level of respect that I had for the people that actually were there protesting peacefully. And again, we're talking about peaceful protesting. We're not talking about there's looters or something else. We're talking about the peaceful protesters, and thinking like what I can do. And I started seeing, again, we popped on here today, and I think what you just shared also helps me and others that are feeling the same way, with just simply reaching out to your friends and just saying, I'm thinking about you. Like, I can't imagine. I have friends of mine that have young Black sons, and they're educated and wonderful. And I can't imagine like having that sickness in your stomach that at any moment, life can just change for them in a negative way. And so I'm so glad that you shared, just those are things that we can all do. We can all just take a moment and just reach out and share love. I personally started sharing more love on Friday, because I was like, what can I do? I can share love. I can share things like Martin Luther King quotes, and I can start, but there was more, right? Like, how much more can we do? So, and having those conversations and being also intentional with the words and how you say things also, on how it impacts others. Maybe you don't recognize that you're saying things that might hurt someone's feelings or might come across as a negative way too. And
that's a big
I don't
one.
even know how to.
Yeah, like especially with people picking and choosing the Martin Luther King quotes that they share. It's like, I would highly recommend for people who aren't really familiar with Dr. King's work to read, just go pick up, he has a big book of his autobiography and then his essays that he wrote to get a better understanding. And now is a time where the energy that I sense the most as a psychic medium intuitive is actually grief. And people are expressing it through anger and through fear and through rage, but it's grief. It's this terrible, overwhelming sadness and this heaviness that's being brought to the center. This isn't these, and people feel like these are dark times, but it's like they've always been dark times. It's just now more people are able to see it, as opposed to some of the people being able to see it. So absolutely, there are going to be things that we misunderstand. People post something and then folks are going to take it the wrong way. And I would just invite you, if you are in a space where you can one of the ways you can hold space for people is not taking it so defensively, which can be hard. If someone's saying, hey, what you just posted was totally disregarding all of this, and you're like, that wasn't it at all. But the space that you can be willing to just hold for others, if you're able to do so. And it's hard. There's not an easy answer for that, but just being willing to listen and hear where a person's coming from. Because if we're not speaking to someone, or even when we are directly, so many things can be misinterpreted and misunderstood, especially that are written down, And people, like, there's nothing worse than people on the internet with opinions, because it just goes all over the place. And I feel like people have moved away from just listening and especially to listening to people of color. So one of the things I've noticed is people want to do like the all lives matter or listen to both sides argument. And I just invite you to consider that the way society has been structured has been showing us one side of a situation or one side of an argument the whole time. And if you are reacting or want to say those things, you're feeling defensive and you're feeling hurt, it's an invitation to just think about, oh, what's going on? What do I think is being said here when this person's just sharing their truth and their position? Like, what's really going on with me? And as a person of color, I've had to do that. I've looked at what people are saying or not saying, and I'm sensing, oh, there's an intense judgment inside of me. And instead of judging my judgment, it was like, I just had to sit there and go, I want to be able to be in this neutral place, but I honestly can't. That doesn't feel right to me. That doesn't feel like my truth. And I'm just going to accept that I am super uncomfortable. I'm super triggered, and I'm just going to do the best that I can do today. And when I say the energy of grief so strong, especially and I feel like it's across our nation in America, and it's also being felt all over the world. But grief, I use that word because if someone was grieving, we wouldn't just hit him with a whole bunch of intellectual facts. So if someone had literally just died, we wouldn't be like, and this happens, right? Like someone dies, and I was a psychic medium. How I started my business is I did a lot of readings for, as a psychic medium, if someone dies, I can connect with them on the other side. And so and give messages to their living loved ones. And people would tell me stories about, oh, one of their kids would die. And someone would say, well, you have your other kids, at least they're alive. Like they're coming at them in an intellectual way. And the person's devastated. And it's like, why are you coming at me with all these facts and evidence? I just need you to be here with me. I need you to be present and feel what I'm going through, to really hear what I'm saying before you just try to dismiss it and get back to not being comfortable. Because when we respond in this kind of matter-of-fact, intellectual, let's think about all sides, or I'm not that person. If we take it there, as opposed to really being present with people, it really does come off as dismissive and minimizing. And you just, whether people realize it or not, it burns bridges, and people learn and people see how we interact with others and go, okay, I know then I can't talk to this person about any type of an issue. And I would also say it's so easy just to be listening to your audience. So if you have followers on Facebook, what are they posting? What are they posting on Instagram? What are they saying? What do they care about? You don't have to have your head in the ground. And unfortunately, it's even easier now to live in a bubble, to only like watch news or listen to people who agree with what you agree with or think how you think. And it's very easy when you're confronted with a different perspective or point of view to go right back into the bubble and not consider anything else. And again, this is where these times are so powerful, and it can be a catalyst for all of us coming together with just spirits telling me very strongly, first step is just listening. And then second step is, where can we make self-improvements? Where can we do the work? And again, on my Facebook page, I have a link to a woman. She actually used to be a FemCity member. I don't know if she still is, but her name's Cecile Armstrong, who has anti-racism classes. And she teaches, it was very important for her specifically to hold the space for non-Black people, like white folks, in a way where they didn't feel shame or minimized, as they were just trying to learn and dismantle the structures and systems that we've all been born into. But I mean, there's like so many resources everywhere that people have been sharing. And so doing the work sometimes isn't about making a grand gesture on Facebook or social media if you're not feeling it. It's doing the work is more powerful. And then also, if you're following up and checking in on your friends, relatives, family members, I would make sure if you're reaching out, it's because you really do care about them and not because you want to get validation about how you're a good person, like doing so without expecting something in return, which is also hard to do, right? It's like, how do we be great human beings? And anti-racism is a part of it, but it also bumps against our regular, normal, subconscious limiting beliefs and how we feel things ought to be in the world. And it's hard right now. So it's okay. It's totally okay. Again, how can you listen? How can you be very clear in the spaces that you have control over about what the rules and boundaries are in your anti-racism work, holding that space so people of color feel safe in your communities? And I would also say there are some people who really feel like they want to say something. And I know because they're reaching out to me like, oh, I saw this and it made me feel this way. And I'm like, well, don't tell me, sis, like post that. Like, don't hold it in. Don't be afraid of that. But I get it. It's like, do what you can do for sure. But if there's something really on your heart, trust it. And it doesn't matter. As I've said, about not all lives mattering stuff. If that's really on your heart, though, I feel like it's very important for people to be speaking up and being honest about how they feel, and then be willing to hear what people say to you in return, so we can get these different perspectives. It's through the discomfort that we get broken open and discussions can happen. And of course, I'm not saying open yourself up to trolls at all. Right. And if you are going to open up, especially in your groups or your communities, you really do have to set boundaries about what that looks like, because people will go like nuts and crazy with it, and it'll immediately devolve into something else.
So I'm so grateful that you shared all of that, Candice. I think I'm going to pull out a couple of things. The social media comments and the posts, like I see a lot of people commenting, and if you're going to comment, like, is it coming from a place of love and understanding, or is it coming from a place of like wanting to be right or to share so even like from that little side, right, on the social media, like really when you start seeing other people's posts and they're sharing what it's like to be color going through this right now, like allow yourself, if you want to be closer to God, if you want to be connected to universe, like it's really about the goodness and seeing the world in a loving way. And so I when you said that, I know so many people that read it, but attached an emotion to it, or they already knew how they were going to fight back. And the reality is like people are just sharing, and it's always better to listen with an open heart and with love and respond with love, because that brings unity together. So it could be something right. Like, I don't know I don't understand what you're talking about, but I'm here to listen. I want to learn more. That's a approach than saying, well, me too. And all this stuff, like, I also love one more thing, because what you mentioned about like, you need more people to be advocates for what's going on that are not people of color. And that hit me this weekend too, because when it comes to women, I always say we need men to also be feminists, to also say women are equal. And it's not to say that women are better or women, it's just saying we're equal, right? We just want to say we're equal, but we need men to serve in that fight.
Right.
The same thing holds true, I think, when we're talking about minority groups, that we
right.
need others to stand with us. And whether you're gay or Cuban or Black, like all of those, like when we stand up for each other, we need that in order to have a greater voice for those that are just trying to just be seen equal. That's what it is.
And dismantling the system is for the benefit of everyone. It's not just for Black people or just for POCs, people of color. It's for everyone. These systems aren't helping or serving any of us, and we're so locked in we don't even see it. And so it's not. And it's okay if you're not a person of color and you're not feeling triggered, if you're not feeling fear, if you're not feeling afraid. Like, you don't have to make yourself go there. And again, that's where I see a lot of people who are like, a person of color will post something and it'll be very real and raw. And then there's a comment that's like, oh, well, I would just focus on the positive, and that is unhelpful. Again, people are grieving. So would you tell a person who just lost someone, hey, well, you just focus on the positive and good luck? That's essentially what people are saying, and they don't realize that that's what they're saying, because what's happened is something in the post triggered something in them that they could relate to and understand. And rather than be present with that, they're immediately switching off and going into the love and light path. Like, all we need is just love and light. And it's like, well, yes. And showing people that you care and holding a space for them, also, that's the action that you can take along with the love and light path. And again, I do not be offended if people aren't so happy with your posts of care. Like, don't be offended or bothered by, well, that person just didn't even say anything to this supportive post I made, because they probably can't deal with it right now. They're getting a lot of information from everywhere, and we're really feeling the energy, and all the people of color that I've been talking to. Every little bit helps. So again, I've got people who are hardly ever on social media. I don't expect them to hop on social media and make a post. That's just not the truth of who they are. Other people might judge them. Whatevs, that's other people. I know them. I know them personally. And so it's you don't have to do stuff that doesn't resonate with you. You don't have to feel pressured in that way. But seriously, if you really want to, I think I had tons of questions from people who were like, well, what do I do and how do I help? Privately, right? They're not doing it publicly. And it's like, so I just started posting information. Well, here's how you can help is like, here's classes that you can take. Here's places that you can donate to. And that's fine. You know, it's, do not be afraid to go there. Do not be afraid of your reactions. Do not be afraid of any of it. Like the first step is just to acknowledge we all want to come together and have unity. And what are ways that we can do that? Are you willing to be uncomfortable temporarily so we can get to where we need to go?
Yeah. This weekend also, it's interesting. My father and I have never talked about, except for his experience living in South Carolina in the 60s, we had never really talked about race. And he identifies as a white Cuban man for the most part, even though he's, you know, my color skin, but that's how he identifies. And this weekend we were talking about the protest. And it was the first time he heard me say, when we lived in North Carolina, Miami is pretty diverse and everyone's like different shades, and it's a beautiful community, I think. And North Carolina, it was the first time I ever experienced racism. Like I lived in this bubble in Miami where everyone's like shades of brown, shades of black. Like, you know, it was not, I mean, I had my own, like, I had to realize like I was never going to be white with blue eyes and blonde hair. So I went through all that when I was a child, right? Like I didn't have a Barbie doll look like me. So I went through all those little silly things that I went through as a child. But as an adult, I remember experiencing racism in North Carolina when we first moved there, where people like assumed that I had AIDS because I was Cuban, or they you know, being called names and things like that. And so it was the first time I actually shared that with him. He had no idea. And that was a really good way for us to use what was going on to have that conversation to say, and he was like, oh, I'm so sorry you felt that you that. And I said, it's okay. Like, but it made me more open-hearted when it came to people, all people that were not like me, because I understand that you may not have seen it in your world. And I get that, you know, maybe you live in a bubble, maybe you're lighter skin or whatever, but having that little touch over the 12 years that I was there, like ongoing, like people asking me like, what was I? Was I black or was I white? Like I got that all the time. And again, it was just curiosity, right? Like I always took it like, oh, they just want to, sometimes I felt like a little like, like they were just jabbing, but for the most part, it was just like, it was just ignorance and they were just wanting to know. And I get that. But it was a really good thing for me to have that conversation with him, because now he understands why I feel more pulled towards, you know, being more active and being more vocal, and how I can support all women. You know, and I do recognize that's a little snippet of what a lot of my friends go through every single day, into like thousands and thousands more beyond of profound, you know, situations. Like that's just a little, like, you know what I mean? Like it's like a salt, and it's like this whole entire other piece that's pretty extreme. So it was good for me to have that. And so if you're watching and you're wanting to have those conversations, like that was a really great time to open up to family members or people that, you know, like, and with love, right? With as much love as you can. And some people are just ignorant and they don't know, and that's okay. I don't know, you know, like sometimes they say things the wrong way, and we learn along the way how to be better humans.
Right. I think I don't want to tone police people of color, because that's something else that happens is people bring something up and they're really outraged, and folks say, well, if you just said it in a nicer way, people would listen. And it's like, well, that's actually not true. There's no way that we could say it, because people get very defensive, because people just get defensive in general with things. So it's, but I think I expect people to be ignorant. I'm totally ignorant. And I say and do things all the time that I don't understand. I'm just saying stuff. And I'm like, oh, until someone says, hey, don't do whatever. It's like, oh, got it. And I do think in conversations, it's not about trying to make people feel guilty or making them feel bad. It's just like, hey, look, this is what's happening with me. This is my truth, because we're living different realities, and all the realities are real. That's why people just are feeling a divide, because it's like, what are you even talking about? We're not even in the same world. And it's like, yeah, that's correct. with how your value system, how you were brought up, what you've experienced. We literally are in different worlds. And so having conversations not to make someone wrong or make someone bad or to punish people, and also not having conversations to prove that you're a good person. It's really just having a conversation to say, hey, how can we understand each other better?
Right.
Having that as the motivation. It's so when I talk about microaggressions, and when I'm in spaces, I don't think people are on purpose trying to be harmful or racist, but the things that are said and done sometimes does have an impact, and it's a lot of like death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's like a lot of small little things that people don't realize. And the minute that someone tries to bring it to their attention, immediately, like, you're being too sensitive. It's the 4 agreements. If you feel bad, it's on you. And I'm a good person, and I did. And they bring up their whole resume of all the things they've done for people of color across time. And it's just kind of like, okay, like, you've just shut down a conversation that could have led to deeper understanding. Right. And again, it's hard because it's asking people to be willing to hear criticism and be willing to be misunderstood without feeling like that's a bad thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We love coming in. Anna says, great conversation. I wish more people could hear this. My friend in France is supporting from France. She's one of our members also over there. I think she's in Paris today. I don't know what city she's in today, but she's in France. How do we move from here? And I think the intention is for all of us to be better humans. I think all of us, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, how do I become better? Like, how do I serve more? How do I stay connected to the work of God also? Like, I always make sure that the work, so for me, it's part of my practice. And I think everyone wants to be a better human. I think people fundamentally, how do we start to, whether it's having more discussions like this, or how do we help other people? Like, what do we do now? I guess is my point. Like, now what?
Take responsibility for ourselves and #do the work. And in the spiritual community, I'm used to saying do the work for a variety of reasons. So, and it's a fine line, because as a Black person, I don't want to identify with being a victim, but I can also have to accept and recognize that the system is not stacked in my favor, for sure. I don't have to internalize being a victim, but I have to still do, it still is very true that certain things might take me longer or be harder, even though I know, like, law of attraction and all the other stuff, and I'm doing the work. That's just how it is. Fine. But I can take responsibility for how I feel, what my truth is, and how I want to show up in the world. And so how do we do better is first making the choice that, yeah, we can grow together, because I see what's happening to a lot of people is they're just making a choice that it's all going to hell, it's all falling apart, it's dark times, and it's fear-based, where if we could make no, I believe that we can use this time to come together, make that choice, and then what's mine to do? Really getting clear and like, what is mine to do, rather than just assuming that all is well, because obviously it isn't. If all was well within us, we wouldn't be seeing what's happening in the world. But asking the question, what's mine to do, and then doing that work. So if you're a person who is easily, and I mean this on all levels, especially spiritual work and anti-racism work for sure, it's learning more about things like subconscious limiting beliefs, how to take responsibility for your happiness, so you're not the person that's blaming other people for everything, and you're also not the person that just assumes it's love and light, that things should just magically happen. It's really starting to learn who we are as individuals, ourselves. And again, like, #do the work, whatever that work means for you. And again, I would strongly recommend, if you have not checked out books about anti-racism and you're not a person of color, and even if you are a person of color, honestly, because I'm checking out all that stuff, it's to start doing that, to get the books, to go take classes, to at least follow the social media accounts and they have the Patreon accounts now, they're talking more about it. But I would say also don't neglect some of the other things, where, like, taking care of your mental health, so important. Like, everybody wants to be spiritual and they want to skip all these steps. It's almost like, well, if I was really spiritual, I don't have to take care of my body. I don't have to take care of my mind. I don't have to do anything. And there are these big disconnects that all of it is spirituality. Our grief, our anger, our frustration, our yelling at each other and arguing with trolls on the internet, all of that is spiritual, all of it. all of it is an invitation where we can go deeper and within ourselves and learn our truths and do better. So, and then so I would say start with self, and what's mine to do is a question I ask all the time and get really real with. As I said, as I'm getting triggered with people like, oh, I'm noticing I still am judging a whole lot. I'm going to honor my feelings here. I'm also going to go deeper with, why do I feel the need to control? What is mine to do? And what can I do right now? I'm not Superwoman. I literally this weekend had a bunch of things I wanted to do. And someone was like, what are your goals for the week? And I was like, I think I'm just going to go back to bed. And that's what I did. That's all I could handle. That's all I did. And I just was okay with it, and I don't think it's necessary to become superhuman and act like things don't affect you and fight the good fight, because that's performative. That doesn't really help anything. What helps more is really taking to heart and internalizing the change you want to be. And if people are saying to you, we don't see it, this isn't enough, it's an invitation to look at, well, why aren't people understanding what I know to be true about me? What is missing here? And again, it's a fine line, because I don't think it's reasonable to be like, just cater to what people outside of you think is right. But it's, do you have blind spots? Because we can't see our own blind spots a lot of the time. And again, if your family members, your friends, your community, if they're telling you something, just be listening and then taking steps for what is true for you at the time. It's going to take all of us together to move through this. And I believe that we can. I feel like it'll probably get a little bit worse and a little bit darker, but then I psychically feel in a couple years, there will be complete different ways in which we work, we operate, and treat each other. So it's just to be willing to go through the pain and the discomfort, and be willing for the great misunderstanding, so we can all unlearn together.
Beautiful. I excuse me, I have a friend of mine who's a shaman, and she always tells me, Violet, just do the work. So anytime I'll talk to her, whatever, she's like, go do the work, go do the work. So when you said do the work, I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And I also wanted to mention, I love that you said a while ago, and I forgot to kind of highlight it, is that sometimes we post things so that we look a certain way, right? I'm going to post this so people know, I'm open-minded, or I believe in equality, or all those things that people post for ego reasons, so that they look a certain part or whatever. I love that you set almost the tone of saying, don't just do it for that. Go a little bit beyond and say, what can I do with this platform that I have? Whether I have 2 friends or 5 friends, or do I reach out to my friends, or see what you can do that's action-based, not just, it's a lot of times when people go to church and then just to tell people they went to church.
Right.
You know what I mean? I went to church, I go to church, I go to church, but then they're not practicing.
Right.
Kindness.
Right. Not reading any of the texts that in their particular church. It's we can't do that anymore. We really got to be super real. And so if you're a person who's just listening to the news, you're listening to other people tell you about things, it's huge red flags. We've got to, and that's in all directions, even with spiritual concepts. So many people will try to explain stuff. And I'm like, that's not, especially with things like law of attraction. And again, the 4 agreements, people are not even doing the work to actually read for themselves and learn for themselves. They're just getting everything secondhand and thirdhand, and then it's all twisty, and they wonder why they're confused. So it's not that hard. It's not going to take that much more time. It's just to be willing and start somewhere to do the work.
Right. Beautiful. And also spirituality. I know spirituality, and I love that you mentioned, it's messy. It is messy. It is uncomfortable. It is as you evolve spiritually and soulfully, which I think we all want to do, right? We all want to become closer to what we envision as God would want us to be. That's a lot of work. That's it's not easy. So I love that you mentioned that again a while ago. I just want to pull it out that all of this takes time, takes work. And you might hear conversations that you don't want to hear, that, but from that you can pivot. I know every time I've fallen, and every time I've hit rock bottom, and every time I've really messed up, there has been grace and beauty in that pivot of how I can actually become a better human. So there's always that space for you to change and make the difference.
I literally, just quickly, I was a while ago, someone invited me to be a part of a retreat. And it was a spiritual retreat. People were like masters of emotional freedom technique and masters at like art therapy and like several different things. And we didn't exercise intuitively. And people were like, hey, what is it that you want to create or have in the world? And one person was like, I just want to experience more truth and honesty and not hiding. And another person was like, I want to be able to express myself clearly without judgment and like these things. And that night, something happened and there was this huge argument. These are spiritual leaders. These are amazing people who help thousands and thousands of people. Huge argument with the leaders around this table. It was almost like the Real Housewives. Like no one shook the table and threw anything or called someone a prostitution whore, but it was like that close. Like it was yelling, it was screaming, like people were crying. Another person was like, hey, we should just all like calm down. And then that person got attacked. It's like, don't you tell us how to feel? And it was bizarre. It was the weirdest thing. And I have to say, like a few months after that, and even the next day, but a few months after that, everything that they said that they wanted to create an experience, it happened. It was like, that argument, because there was a whole lot of other things that I won't get into that were going on with the retreat, but people were not being real and not being honest. And there was all this stuff beneath the surface and it just came out, and it came out in a pretty like aggressive, ugly, uncomfortable way. And then it was done. And it was like the energy shifted and cleared and there was space and room for other things. So I know it can be scary for people who feel like we're descending to the depths of hell, but really I invite you to consider that it was already that way. It's just now everybody can see it. And this is an opportunity where are we going to crumble and say this is what is, or are we going to take responsibility to make things different and better and not be afraid of it, not turn away from it. Like we can be involved, and there's going to be something even more brilliant and beautiful on the other side. I feel that this is actually a big blessing, even though it's a blessing that comes absolutely through pain, through grief and heartache and fear and misunderstandings and just a sense of craziness all over the world. It's all of those things. And again, that's as we do our own work and we find our own path in our own way, it helps. Everything helps.
That's beautiful. What a great way to wrap it up. So we were supposed to only do this for 30 minutes and now we're on 42 minutes. Ali Bond. I know every time Candice, I just love our conversations and I'm so glad that we were able to share this for everyone. Ali Bond says, thank you for hosting this talk. Ali's one of our Miami Femmes. I'm so glad that you're joining us, Ali. Candice, I am sorry that I kept you on for so long, but, and again, I want to thank you so much because this morning, again, I reached out to Candice and I was like, I think I want to do this. I think it needs to be done. And she was like, I think the conversation has to happen. And I was like, let's do it. So she really, thank you so much. I feel like the world is better just from this conversation. And I'm just grateful to you and for all the work that you do and for clearly sharing your perspective and how we can actually be a part of the conversation and the solution as well. So thank you. How can Femmes find you, by the way? I didn't even introduce you. We just dove right in. But some people might want to connect with you. So how can Femmes find you?
Well, if this is on Facebook, you can just find me on the FemCity, like Facebook. I'm Candice Thomas Intuitive is my business. Honestly, Facebook has been a really challenging platform. So recently I haven't been on it. I've been on Instagram a whole lot more, which is Candice at Candice Intuitive, and my website, Candice Thomas Intuitive also. So,
and I'll tag you.
Yeah,
I'll tag you in this. So it makes it super easy for you guys to find her. Super easy. And we tagged you in Instagram. So, and then you can always go to femcity.com. She's one of our featured speakers and teachers. So if you don't have Facebook, you don't have Instagram, you just want to go, like, you can always click on our website. You can always find her there. And she's taught a couple of our classes. She's actually on our lineup for June. So super great. Well, and Ali says you should leave this conversation public so we can share. Absolutely. That's literally Candice and I, that's our intention, is to have those conversations that we think many people want to have, but don't know how to start. That was our intention. So we want the conversation to go moving forward. Again, if you're watching this, keep your heart open. Our intention is to bring community back together in a better way and that we can all love each other, more profoundly and deeply. So anyway, Candice, thank you so much. I adore you. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Bye, everyone.